What's happening, y'all? This is Prop, as you can see or listen to. You are in my studio. Now, here's what's funny. I've been recording for the last 45 minutes, and then I just realized the video wasn't recording. It's because I don't do this stuff. Okay. You're in my office. I'm going to do something different. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm going to introduce y'all to something that we've been doing in our Patreon for a while. That right there, first of all, that's my only fake plant. I do have real plants, like this one. That right there is a box of case trays of 6-packs for Terraform cold brew. Those are just the trays for it, just the cardboard box that the case comes in. But they just sitting right there because I ain't got no money to put coffee in actual cans. That is a picture from my wedding, and that's one of the red couches. There's a picture of my wife from her book, and this is our office. I'm welcoming you into our office, welcoming you from YouTube, because I want to tell you about some stuff that we do on our Patreon. Welcome everybody from the Patreon. You already know what this is. This is a podcast series called Tunnel Rats to Terraform. Now, I got the idea from Eli. No, I got the idea from Merce, who got the idea from Eli from Living Legends, to go through all of your lyrics, from every lyric, from every song, from top to bottom, your whole career, and tell all the stories behind what those lyrics mean, where they came from, the production of the album, tours, people you met along the way, where all these stories come from that created the music that y'all have come to appreciate. I've been doing it on my Patreon, so I'm bringing this to YouTube so I could entice you to join my Patreon, which is the Red Couch Pod. Now, depending on how long you've been around me, you know that the Red Couch Pod was the podcast with Dr. Alma, would refer to her by her prefix. And we're still over there, but like Alma's not really a part of it, because let me tell you something. Let me tell you what I learned about boundaries. I never had them. There's two people in this world taught me boundaries. That's Alex Medina. You know, shout out Alex, working at Spring Hill, you know, doing Uninterrupted in the you know, he was a designer and a producer in the early days of Reach Records, and has went on to do amazing work. Both him and Alma got this same thing that I don't got. Swear, you know, for those that practice an Enneagram 3 2-wing, you know, I believe in, because I take it's my own malady. Like, I don't be saying no to stuff, you know. I take on things because I don't ever want people to think that I don't value them and their time as much as they feel I should. So a lot of times I just be taking on more things than I should. It's not like a martyr thing. And my wife used to always think, like, why you always performing? Like, you don't have to just perform for everybody. And it's not so much that I'm performing for them. To me, it just, in my core, like, I just be wanting to meet them where they are and do for them things that would make me feel important and special too. And again, it's my own malady, because I oftentimes feel like if you don't respond to a text, like, I be taking stuff personal. You know what I'm saying? But she was like, honestly, I just don't have time to do the Red Couch Podcast Award. That's why we'll do it award. But on this show, it's just me. I don't edit it. It's very raw. You know, like, if you listen to the Hood Politics Pod and all that, like, you know, we chop out all the you knows and the and you know what I'm saying? So it's like that gets all edited out, and then Matt Outsowski, killing the beat softly, he comes and adds the music. That's not this one. This, you just saw the camera shake. You know what I'm saying? Like, you see the big old light coming from there. It's like, this one's very unpolished, and it's just us having a conversation about our work. Now, I've been going in order. If you've been, for y'all again who's already on the Patreon, welcome. Look, this how I look when I do it. We've been like, I started off all the way back to like when I was 16 in high school with our group Subhuman Tactics. It just raps that nobody has ever heard, and albums we did when we was performing in the lunch tables. You feel me? So all the way back to that, shout out my cousin Arjuna, who's a freaking like physical trainer for kickboxing, just a massive man who just had his first child. It's just, yeah, Arjuna is a giant. And then my cousin Myron, DJ Jimbrowski, like, yeah, it was just like my, like a real origin stories that into like the foundation years, my battle rap years, all the way into, Meeting Glory, and then, all the tunnel rap records, the Foot Soldier stuff, all the tours we've done during that time. And then all the stuff that, like I said, all the stuff that preceded Humble Beast, and then all the music we made with Humble Beast. So we've been at it for a little bit. So like, please subscribe to the Patreon, and you can get the rest of these pods. The rest of them have been audio though, because like I didn't realize until now that like I should probably do video, because again, I don't edit them. Like Alma might walk through this door. You feel me? So I just thought I don't have like a pretty, studio, you feel me, to be able to do stuff like this. But anyway, so right now we're on the Crooked album, but in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day, I was like, let's shoot forward to the song Andrew Mandela, why it was so important, why we want to talk about it today, because it's Indigenous Peoples Day. Like I say all the time, every Indigenous Peoples Play, please go to nativelands.ca, and you could put in your zip code, and you can see who was, the ancestral, tribe that was here, that in the land that you live in. And out here in California and LA, it was the Tongva tribe and the Chumash, and up in Ventura. So those were the original keepers of LA, you know what I'm saying? And I think it's important to like acknowledge that, but not like in a corny way. Like don't like ransack somebody's powwow and just start buying dream catchers and talking about, you know what I'm saying? But no, like I'm the child of a Black Panther. Again, if you know me, you know that like, although I know that, anti-blackness is like a global project everywhere, the truth is like the most sort of invisible people group, the suffering and just, they just don't even be counted, are our Native brothers and sisters. Like they don't be even acknowledging that they there, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times, even in some of the statistics around like sexual assault and rape and alcohol, they don't even count natives. Like they don't even count them. Like, you feel me? So just like, at least a small acknowledgement, you know what I mean? That like, that they exist, you feel me? That they're our brothers, they're our sisters. And shout out y'all, and in every way, any way that you can, like, please find a way to like, learn a little bit more about, the native tribes around you. And again, don't be weird, you know what I'm saying? Like, you ain't got to start buying jewelry and being like, the Joshua Tree dudes. That's very LA stuff. That's a very California joke, but don't be like that. But just, acknowledge the reality. You feel me? So yeah. So y'all know I've existed in, in and around, faith spaces, and have kind of just always kind of like been who I am. Now not obviously, like if you was in Christian circles, then you're very clear on who I am and where I stand for. But like, since I didn't reach the like Winter Jam level, you know what I'm saying? Like I never played those things. Like I never did Passion Conference. Like I never got there, I was never Lecrae. I opened for Lecrae, as my brother, but like I during all that time, while we were doing all that stuff, like I was also at Thought Fest, I was at Rock the Bells, I was at, you know what I'm saying, I was doing LA stuff, you know, and just doing hip hop. I was at Mike and Dim Lights, like I was doing all those things, and like it's always been important to me in just the way that I write, and because people will walk up to me like, you know, you see, I feel like I know it sounds like I'm jumping around, but like follow me again. Like I said, this pod's not edited. It's just me talking to you. But it was always important for me to like people to feel seen in my music. So like people will always like come up to me and just be like, man, you like, if they didn't know, like if this wasn't like a Christian space or nothing, they were like, man, nah, I love it, man. You on that, like, you on that other stuff. Like they couldn't put their finger on it, but they knew like what I was saying was something different than what they was getting. Does that make sense? So, and I know what it was. You know, some of it was just like, because I feel like I'm talking about the things of God, you know what I'm saying, which are just like, that are just good for the soul. But since I'm not coming at you like with this big old banner, you know, that like I am this Christian rapper, I feel like it was just a different sort of experience. But those believers there knew, you know what I'm saying. I think it's cool with like a lot of these, like a lot of the younger, you know, Christian rappers now, like the, you know, the Miles Mimics and the No Big Deals and them, like they can like, they don't have to explain all this, you know what I mean, that like this force field between like Christian and secular and general market, like it really ain't that serious. It's like you Christians go to music shows too, you know what I'm saying, like it be everybody at everything. So I never felt like I was doing anything out of the ordinary, because I'd be like, it be church folk at the bar too, like I don't, you know what I'm saying, like it just wasn't, it wasn't a thing to me, you feel me? So, but they knew, and part of that was because during the Foot Soldiers time when we was doing all the stuff with KRS-One said, and it really stuck with me, he was like, look, a good, you know, there's a lot of stuff that he said that was strange, but a lot of stuff was like amazing. You know, one of them was like, yo, a good rapper can take their emotions and communicate it well. They could say what they feel in their heart in a way that resonates. He's like, but an MC, he says, or that MC says what you're thinking. Like they're able to, he was like, it's almost like you could reach up that person's spinal cord and animate their mouth. Like you put in words in their mouth. These are the words that they would say if they had the mic and the skills that you had. You know, he was like, yo, that's MCing. And that was always kind of my goal. And part of that was like, for me, having a broader understanding or a broader experience with multiple things. I always wanted people to walk away with something that connected with them when they came and saw me. You know what I'm saying? So, and part of that was like, you know, on Raise the Banner, it was like Theos, Theas, Ates, Quias. Like, this is me. Like, you see yourself in that. Like I'm talking about you. Like, they're like, whoa, what do you know about Ates and Quias? Like, well, my stepmom's Filipino, you know? And part of that, it's on purpose. It's like, I want you to feel like you're welcomed here too. Some of that, again, comes from being like raised the way I was raised. I think a lot of times I took for granted having the type of home education I had with a Black Panther father, that like seeing the interconnections among us, among suffering people everywhere, it wasn't hard for me to see. That's why it's easy to be like Free Palestine and be like, you're looking at this and just being like, I don't know, are we looking at the same thing? This is quite obviously what it is. Like, to me, you know, because again, like I'm coming from this desire to like really be able to understand experiences that may not be mine, but to find myself in them and be able to say, oh, I understand what you're saying, and then try to put that in my music. You know, believe me, I'm still talking about natives here, or indigenous peoples, and this song. Like, this is about this song, right? But all that to say, it was always important for people to feel seen when they heard my music, that there was something for them. And I found speaking on Native issues in a way that's, again, I can't tell their story for them because I didn't go through it. You know what I'm saying? Like the homie Mike Luna, it was once he kind of called me on even talking about reparations, where he was like, black people asking for 40 acres and a mule, but he's like, but y'all asking it of, that's stolen land. Like, you asking it, that's not their land to give you. You know, and I was like, God, dog, like that really, like, wow. You know what I'm saying? Like, that really, that was a dig. And but what I'm trying to say is, like, understanding those nuances, I think it's also in my book, like, nuance is sacred work. You feel me? Like, you need to, like, know those nuances. So, Andrew Mandela. The song I was really excited to do, but before I could tell you, like, why it was so important, especially in the concept of crooked, like, we just got to back up a little bit. Totally don't understand how any land is named after Columbus. Like, this man was lost. He's, like, historically, verifiably, like, not a smart man. America not named Columbia because he ain't never actually come here. Like, it's named after Amerigo Vespucci. You feel me? Like, this nigga he didn't even come. Oh man, it's so funny. Anyway, the first tour I ever went on. Now, if you've seen me perform, you know this story. Before I even do that, I gotta tell you about, in my book, I talk about, like, the whitest email I ever got, the two whitest emails I ever got. I think I've talked about what the whitest one is. But I'm about to tell you a story about the whitest email I ever got. Anyway, so, but before that, if you ever see me live, I think I talk about this in the book too. Like, the first national tour I ever went on was with the homie Red Cloud, and it was all Native American reservations. And the reality is, like, that was the most calibrating experience, because I thought I knew. Again, like, I come from like I really believed that I understood more than I did, and a lot of that just had to do with just what I was exposed to. I just wasn't exposed to more of those things. You know, is the lighting getting weird? You know, like I said, this is raw. I'm gonna do that. There we go. Yeah, let's move this over. There we go. You know, so 27 Native American reservations, and, like, you learn things that are just, like, one is just obvious that they just people like everybody else, and it's not like they all get along, that everybody is, like, you know, they're as diverse as, dude, the Iroquois way up in the north, which is a French word no less, so don't sleep on the fact that that's not even an English term. You feel me? I'm trying to change this light a little more because I feel like I look weird. It's really the door light. I don't know how to, like, I don't know. I can't. I gotta. I'm working on it. But yeah, they're just as different because it's like they're totally different cultures. You learn that, like, a lot of these dudes don't all get along. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is. But I, like, the curiosity in me and just the people that just love culture. That's how, you know, the homie Red Cloud, like, introduced me to Mike Bone and Funny Bone. They're on the Rez Dogs, the two little twins that are hilarious. I met them on this tour. The homie Superman, who does, like, the fancy dance. He's got a whole thing called Medicine. With his clothes, he's an amazing artist. Like, I just met the homie Mike Tyson, you know, from Yuma, Arizona. And shout out Kali down in San Diego. Like, Red Cloud really, like, I'm forever indebted for that tour. You just learn so much, and just, you know, you asking questions. I'm just like, yo, like, how this whole thing was y'all's? Like, how it couldn't have been just the guns. Like, how did this not work out? You know what I mean? And, you know, he's just like, dude, like, this just the cultural differences of how you see the world. Like, bro, you can't own land. Like, so how do you, like, so when somebody say you come buy land, it's not ours to sell you. Like, the land is a gift. We're stewarding it, you know? So you can't, you know, it's like, their concept of like, no, like we are members of nature. Like we're part of nature. We're just members of it. You know, do the fish own the ocean? No, they just in the water. You feel me? And you just on the land. So like, I mean, I don't like have at it. Then all of a sudden, you know, these settlers coming in, you just chop down the tree that was growing that was our food for the winter. Like, what did you just, that's the wood we were going to burn. Like, you just, what are you just willy-nilly chopping the tree? Like, what are y'all doing? You know what I'm saying? They're like, dog, the ground is sacred. The land is sacred. Why is it sacred? Because it's a gift from Creator. We didn't make it. We just got it. It's a gift from the Creator. You know? And then they said that they believe that, you know, that we're made of the soil that we're from. Then if you're made of the soil and the soil is sacred and sacred gift, then that means you sacred. You're a sacred gift. I can't treat you like nothing else except for a sacred gift. I'm like, what a worldview. You feel me? Like so that stuff was super calibrating to me. Like it just, you see the world much differently when you see it as like, this is a gift. We're being stewards of it, and I'll forever be grateful for it. So that's the way I was thinking about it, right? So that had stuck with me throughout most of my music because I always thought about like, yeah, you know, you come in there, you about to give them the gospel. It hit different on a res. Like you don't just be like, oh, you with them? You talking about the people that just carted off our children into schools and wouldn't let them speak our language? Like them? You with them? This is good news? You know what I'm saying? So you just think differently about it. So yeah, so like this has always been in my back pocket. Now you fast forward to this email I got. Okay, now this email I got is from my homeboy Brian Carpenter, who is a phenomenal man who runs this thing called the Refuge Foundation. And it's out in Montana. You know, they lease this land on a reservation, and it's essentially for faith leaders to not burn out, right? Excuse me. Because dudes be exhausted. Like, the reality is, and this is no defense for anybody who done really messed up and just like threw their whole life away, but the reality is you make bad decisions when you're tired. Like everyone makes bad decisions when they're tired. Like when you're exhausted, when you're stressed, your ability to think straight and make a good decision, it's hindered, right? So a lot of times, bruh, like, fam, trees rest. Like they let go of their leaves in the winter because they just need a break. You feel me? Like you just need a break, you know? The ground rests. Like the 7th day God rested. You know what I'm saying? Like the Sabbath, like remember the Sabbath to keep it. Oh, it's because, fool, you tired, man. Like you don't make good decisions. And I come from that, like, I don't have the toxic masculinity that's like, you know, slaying chicks, you know, my truck's bigger than yours, I could beat you up. Like, I don't have that type of masculinity. I have the workaholic masculinity. Like, men work. You rest when you're dead. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no excuses. You know, I say it all the time. Like, I grew up around these, like, you know, these Latino communities where these Mexican dads, like, men don't retire. No, you're on the roof at 80, like, fixing shingles. Like, we just work. That's the mentality. You just work. There's never an excuse. There's no such thing as tired. If there's a job to be done, you're done when it's done. That's like, I don't get the whole take a break thing, right? Until I absolutely needed to. You feel me? So I get this email to be like, hey, we're going to fly fish on Bighorn River. Prairie dog hunt. And I don't know who else is coming. All you had to do is buy your ticket. I was like, absolutely not. That is some white shit. You're tripping. Ain't no way in the world I'm going to that. But my homeboy Cameron, who runs Relevant magazine, shout out Cameron, one of my like really good friends, you know, over the years. I really appreciate him. He went, And he's been public about it. Like he was going through a divorce at the time, and he just needed like something because he was, you know, ready to check out. And not like check out, but like check out. And so he was in this space where he was like, yo, I'm just going to say yes to everything and just really try new things. So I ended up going, right? And I went the next year, and it was phenomenal. It's like, if y'all see those pictures on my Instagram where I was like, I put the fly fishing, that's where it is. It's out there. It is in fact still incredibly white. But when you do go, once you go once, you can curate your own group. So Cameron was like, no, I'm handpicking everybody that's going, so it won't be weird. And I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, so I went. It was phenomenal, but part of why I wanted to go was because I wanted to see, because it's really close to the monument for Little Bighorn, for Custard's last stand. Do you know what I mean with General Custard and Sitting Bull? Like, I learned the story just like you did, like that this heroic man fought to the last man to try to protect the Union. Now, not at all what happened. Do you know the story? I'm asking you like you can answer me. So the story goes like this. I can't remember if it was like after Louisiana Purchase or it was after the Civil War. Either way, the country was broke. And so the Crow Nation, which is a thing among natives, the Crow has the largest land reservation because they agreed to be scouts for the American Army. So there's kind of like a thing, you know, among the natives. And part of that was like, look, dude, you can be, you know, a commentator from like 200 years later, but like you wasn't there, you know what I'm saying? And given their situation, they were locked in with a beef with the it wasn't the Lakota, like you could tell, y'all tell me, but they were locked in with a beef with another neighboring tribe, and they were like, well, we could use this to our advantage, you know what I'm saying, to like, you know, get the leg up on there, because you got to remember, like, it's been thousands of years that they've existed on this land. This Visigoth coming here, you know what I'm saying, with this Manifest Destiny stuff was like, y'all were new, you know what I'm saying? So like, you just thought, you know, they thought logically like this would help them in the long run. But again, 200 years later, you know, say whatever you want. But anyway, they were given this land from like Montana all the way to North Dakota, all the way down to like the Black Hills, way over there near the Sierra Nevadas, right? Like way over there. So they had a huge plot of land that was theirs, that was given to them by the Americans, right? And then we discovered gold, which meant, oh, we gonna, in the Black Hills, it was like, oh, we discovered, oh, we gonna need that land back. It just like America, right? And the natives in them was like, no, absolutely not. Ain't no way in the, what is you talking? Absolutely not. First of all, those are our hunting grounds. First of all, it was already ours. Number one, right? And that's where we hunt. Like, no, why would I? No. American government was told General Custard, you know, like, hey, go get our land. So he was like, oh, we finna crash out. This finna be light work. He divided his team up into thirds, went down there, saw that like Sitting Bull and them was not to be played with, right? So he was like, okay, wait a minute. We can't just wax them. This ain't gonna be a full crash out. We're gonna have to figure out a better way to do this. So what he did was he waited until all of the men were, and warriors and stuff, they were all hunting, right? So they were way out in the Black Hills hunting, which left the women and children in their village all alone. And they went in there and just scorched earth everything. Killed, kidnapped, burnt, like just destroyed, and then carted off the women and children as like prisoners and slaves and stuff like that. Just the worst possible scenario. The men come back obviously in the heaviest set of mourning that you could possibly be in. And it was basically like General Custer and them was trying to like draw them out. Like, all right, well, this gonna get y'all out. So now let's do this. Obviously, the native men were like, oh, it's up. Oh, crash out. Like, there's obviously it's on. Joe said like this, we're gonna have to dog walk them. Like, there's no, right, fellas? We're gonna dog walk them. Absolutely, right? So when you're at this monument, there's a museum. There's a native museum where you can learn more about their history and their customs up there. And then there's this big square monument to General Custer. And I'm flabbergasted because I'm like, but he lost. Why is this monument to him? You're the bad, like, ain't he the bad guy? So then you could go to this monument that they have for Sitting Bull. That's a little further over. And you can read Sitting Bull's words for the day before the full crash out. He sits the men down. You can read it. I'm telling you, man, I had to go to this thing because I needed to see this with my own eyes. Because, again, this is with the backdrop of doing this tour, right, that I did before, where he was like, okay, listen. Basically, obviously, we finna murder every last one of them. But they're just men following orders. They have women and children at home, too. They got wives. They got kids at home, too. And any bloodshed is sad. And he's like, we're going to say a prayer for them because there is no white man or red man. There's just earth man. So either way, the earth is going to suffer, right? And I'm like, yo, which one of them is the Christian, right? And then the next day they get up. And when you see, because if you know the area, it's just rolling hills. There's nowhere to hide. It's just rolling hills for miles. And the place got little white stick plots for where General Custer's army were falling, where the men were dying, right? And it's a pathway that you could tell, as you've seen these white sticks, pathway running to the river, that they was running, right? There's one part where, if you look at the history, that the Custer's army shot one of their own horses just so they could hide behind them to try to shoot back. Them native Sitting Bull in there just mopped them dudes. Like, so they won. But somehow this monument is to Custer. And I'm like, something about that is crooked. This is the largest second place trophy I'd ever seen. So you have that in mind. Also, remember Mike Brown. When I'm writing this is also like Mike Brown, and Philando Castile and Eric Garner, and all these things were happening in the country. And I'm like, how do I address this? And what was the full catalyst was when Nelson Mandela passed away, and good old Facebook. I'm thinking Nelson Mandela like a Mother Teresa character. Like, of course you could critique him if you're in, justice work and justice circles and say maybe he didn't go far enough, that he was willing to, like, abide by, just like you would say with Martin Luther King, they was willing to abide by, work within a system, and this whole nonviolence thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, this, I was going to try to do a Nelson Mandela impression. But this was around this time, right when he passed away. But you can critique him and saying maybe he didn't go far enough. But I'm thinking it's pretty understood worldwide that he's Nelson Mandela's, like, he's up there. Like, he's a Mother Teresa. Like, there's no, how could you have a bad thing to say? I just was like, I don't understand how anyone has a problem with Nelson Mandela. Turns out I was dead wrong. And guys, I made this post about his passing. And I mean, I wrote a book report in 7th grade. You had to do a biography about Nelson Mandela. it just made so much sense to me. You know, when you're in 4th grade in California, you have to do a California missions trip or a California missions project, right? Where you have to learn about the California missions and Saint Winipero Sarah, who came and, you know, set up all these missions among the California Sea. They were like essentially internment camps for natives. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was an awful experience. Like, why does he get the statue? You know what I'm saying? So I'm talking about Nelson Mandela, and this guy and these couple people in the comment section were like, well, he was a terrorist. I don't understand how a Christian man could celebrate a terrorist. And I was like, terrorist? Do you know anything about apartheid? Like, do you terrorists? To which my first thought was, well, if he a terrorist, then so is Andrew Jackson. You know who Andrew Jackson is? The guy on our money. Like, that's the Trail of Tears guy. That's the Indian Removal Act. Like, actual genocide. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just gonna march these people. That's why it's called the Trail of Tears. Like, why is he a hero? Why is he not a terrorist? And I mean, I think you know, but a lot of that has to do with his storytelling, and we're all victim to storytelling. Like Alexander the Great. I mean, not if you a Persian. You know what I'm saying? Like, he not great if you a Persian, right? Just these things are like, they're nuanced. Another thing in the book, nuanced is sacred work. Like, you can't, like, this is crooked, man. Like, you think you know. You feel me? And it's like, you don't know. Still getting mad about this lighting thing. Anyway, hopefully you're still watching. I don't know how to adjust it. I don't know how to do that. Anyway, so I'm thinking about all these things. I'm putting all this stuff together, and this not only was a catalyst song, but probably the catalyst for the whole record was this clash of understanding. So the name of the song is Andrew Mandela, and it's obviously a play on words between Andrew Jackson and Nelson Mandela. Now, I'm still getting booked for these like big Christian conferences. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm still, like I said, like, I'm not doing the winter jams and stuff, but y'all will definitely let me, for some reason, be the person that's gonna come in here and talk to y'all. And I've never, like, it's so crazy, I've never felt like, I don't know why people have seen my words as much more approachable. Cause and then some of my friends, like my Show Baraka friends, like Akimini, you know, from the Truths Table, like them being disinvited to events because they were too divisive. I'm like, we all three of us said the same thing. I don't understand why y'all think like, I said the same thing she did. Like, we're all saying, you know, but for some reason they would keep booking me, and I'm like, this is where the chorus comes from. I take shots at your sacred cows. I'm like, I'm referring to precious Puritans. Like, I'm like, I don't understand how, what don't y'all, like, I'm gonna point at this elephant in the room. Like, why are y'all so hyped on these Puritans? Do y'all not know how calendars work? Bro, like, they was around, like, this is during chattel slavery. Like, why do you think their version of the faith is so much better than everybody else's, while literally humans are being sold? I'm like, they were chaplains. How you gonna be a chaplain on a slave ship? Well, at least we could give them the gospel. What the is anybody else hearing this? So to me, I'm like, bro, I'm taking shots at that. Take shots at your sacred cows. I dance with skeletons in closets. I point at elephants in the room. I'm pointing at it and make a mockery of your heroes. Like, this you can't possibly. It's like, well, pick your poison. You know, like, if he's a terrorist, then he's a terrorist. And if you're not willing to admit that your guy ain't a terrorist, then you got to stop calling that dude a terrorist. Like, what are you talking about? What don't you understand about context? Now, the production of the song was by the homie Dirt. of the Tunnel Rats. Dirt produced Do No Wrong. Dirt is somewhere right now, probably on some sort of motorcycle in Calcutta or Dubai right now, because Dirt figured out life. We met in college. We were both art majors, but he was graphic design and I was illustrations, but he went on to actually have a career in visual arts. He made a lot of money on that and stocks, and he likes his time, and he got on his backpack and his bike and he satellite phone, he travels the world, you know what I'm saying? And he produced the original version of this, and I regret not using it. I think just, if anything, for our friendship, because I really think it soured like a relationship with not just me, but with Humble Beast, period, because, you know, as a label, they just made a different decision. I should have, although don't get me wrong, the beat for this song is one of my favorite beats on this record, but like, I feel like we should have found a way to use what Dirt created, because it was super dope. So the song was pretty much written when Cortland from Beautiful Eulogy, who ended up producing the version that we have, so he had heard the song and he got super inspired. So that chant, that yeah, that chant is South African. It's Xhosa. And what we were supposed to do for the second verse, when we talk about Native American and Andrew Jackson, was to pitch it up higher, so it's the same chant, but it sounds like the Plains Indian. That was the idea. So it'd go yeah, and so like it would have been. It didn't work out. And I think maybe because maybe there's something about like the keys and the notes that I just didn't understand. But either way, it didn't happen. But that would have been super dope. Anyway, this was a little history. This was the moment when I was trying to record this podcast the first time that I realized the video wasn't recorded. So I had gotten this far and then started over. So now I'm crossing the start over line. So anyway, I take shots at the sacred cows. I dance with skeletons in closets. I point at elephants in the room and make a mockery of heroes. And I knew I wanted to say something like pick your poison. You know, like you know, cowboy, like pick your poison, boys, you know, pick your poison, boys, pick your poison. So then the thank you, Mr. President, is like the thing that, like, when we go into the verses, that like connects the two things. You sat inside a celly for more than a quarter of a century. So I'm talking about Nelson Mandela when he did go to prison. And then another thing I'll get in before I get into the specifics is the God forgive me for my brash delivery, but I remember vividly what apartheid did to me. That's a reference to Jay-Z. God forgive me on, what more can I say? God forgive me for my brash delivery, but I remember vividly what the streets did to me. And just this idea of like, you know, again, I'm referring to this guy calling him a terrorist, and I'm like, do you understand apartheid? Right? I remember vivid, like if you're Nelson Mandela, you're like, or just if you lived in that system, like you remember to your cells, like, and you worried about me using harsh words, like you don't get it. So then again, when we talk about it in when I talk about it in the second verse, God forgive me, I say it again, God forgive me for my brash delivery, but I remember vividly what Lewis and Clark did to me. Now, if you went through our American education system, you know who Lewis and Clark was, you know, and Sacagawea, and you know all this stuff. It's like when we bought the Louisiana Purchase, they were the guys that went to explore it. It's like this was the beginning of like the coming apocalypse. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're a native, Lewis and Clark is in your bones. Like this is the apocalypse, right? We had the little coon hats thinking it was cute. No, bro. Pick your poison. So I think I'll stop right there. Like I said, these are the type of stuff we talk about on the Tonal Rats to Terraform podcast. Please subscribe on the Patreon, Red Couch Podcast, and we'll see y'all next week.